The Short Game is listener-supported on Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and join us on our Discord, head to theshortgame.net or patreon.com/theshortgame.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is a show about short video games that respect your time. I'm Raygan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by my fine co-hosts,
Laura Nash
and Shane Kelly.
And this week we are continuing and sort of wrapping up our pre-close of the comp coverage of IFComp 2021. So if you are not used to our comp format, we typically do a number of episodes before the close of the comp where we just sort of share the games that we're playing and have our impressions as we go. But we've also been tending to do a little bit of a loop around and cover the comp after it closes as well, usually to wrap up and talk about any high-ranking games that we didn't get a chance to cover, as well as just talk about the results and what we think of the comp for the year. So that's still to come, but where that comes in our schedule can be a little more flexible. This is our last episode of Game Impressions before the close of IFComp 2021. About that, the comp closes on November 15th. So remember to get your votes in. Don't be like some people, certainly not me, never been me, who play a bunch of games and then forget to enter your votes on the ballot form or procrastinate on doing such a tiny and simple task. Make sure you get your votes in before the close of the comp.
I have never forgotten to put in my votes. I simply withhold my votes because I feel that my position as a journalist is too powerful. And that therefore putting my thumb upon the scales of the interactive fiction competition would be unfair.
Dear listeners, we do not agree with Shane's approach. Be a judge. Be the jury.
Be the executioner.
That was an old, a kid's book series when we were growing up. Be the judge, be the jury, where there were court cases and you had to figure out who did it.
Oh, I just thought you were doing a Judge Dredd bit.
No, I mean, sure, let's say that's what I was doing, rather than making an obscure reference to books that have probably been out of print for a decade.
Probably more. So we've got, this week we've just, I know we're all old. This week we've just got 4 games to tell you about.
I had to Google it. The first one that comes up is The Lizzie Borden Trial. Be the judge, be the jury. Paperback from January 1993.
See? There are tens of us.
Your references are sick.
Hey.
Thank you, Laura.
They become relevant later on when I discuss the Tumblr games. So let's keep going.
Good. Okay. I'm glad you had a game plan with that. So I played 2 games, both of which I'm quite enthusiastic about for this episode. And they're both on the meatier side of the things that I have played for this year's comp. The first game I played was What Heart Heard Of, Ghost Guest by Amanda Walker. So this is Amanda's first piece of interactive fiction, according to her blurb in the game itself. She has some nice, notes there talking about her inspirations and thanks to everybody and whatnot. This is a game that is based partially on a poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins, where the title comes from. And the poem is in the game itself. It's very nice. And it is very, very much a work of gothic horror. So this is a parser game, and the description on the page, which I think is worth reading, starts with the first 2 lines of the poem. Margaret, are you grieving over Golden Grove unleaving? Come home to Golden Grove, a beautiful old house haunted by a lost soul. Uncover the secrets of your tormented past in a tale of unrequited love, jealousy, violence, betrayal, and vengeance. What Heart Heard Of Ghost Guest is a puzzle-driven, parser-based gothic horror story with a unique command set. And it gives the content warning, this game contains violence and child abuse, which it does, but it's not especially distressing. It's very much in the gothic horror vein. Mm-hmm. So if that's the sort of genre you can get down with, I think that this is not the sort of thing that's going to really upset folks. although it does have some grisly imagery here and there. This is a game about being a ghost. And it's a limited parser game in that you, being a ghost, you don't have many of your traditional parser interactive verbs. So you can't, while you can go north, you cannot get lamp because you pass right through things. You can't pick things up. You don't pass through doors, importantly, because opening doors is a big part of the puzzles in this. No explanation given as to why this ghost can't pick up objects, cannot pick up objects, but also cannot pass through doors when she wants.
That's funny. I was actually completely okay with that. Partially.
Shall we speculate on the theology of the doorknob ghost? Why
I mean, I think if you really want to come down to it, this is a game all about captivity and being trapped and the sort of abuse of that. And so, maybe it's left its psychic scars on our poor ghost protagonist. So sure, why not? This is not the sort of thing where we need to dwell on that. It's important for the puzzle design anyway.
I didn't realize that this was a first-time author, and you wouldn't know by playing the game. But I think the unique set of verbs is a fantastic workaround for not knowing how many ways someone will try to break it, because as you are collecting emotions that you can use to haunt different things and achieve your puzzles, if you do try other words that are in the normal parser language, you get really unique answers. And I love that the ghost limitations also feels like a really wonderful workaround from keeping you from doing something not accommodated by the game. It's one of the most generous fallbacks. And if your parser game does not include are you new to interactive fiction, and let me explain to you how this game works, I'm going to say it. I will downgrade you a point. Like, you should be doing that by now, because every time I do it, it has filled me with love for the genre. And I read it every time because even though I've played a million, I don't know what you think is standard. So please, this is my call out to authors. Tell me up front what your help guide is, and let me skip it if I want, but I never will skip it personally.
Yeah, that was a very nice feature here. And this is a very well-designed game for potentially new parser players.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree, like, playing through it, I didn't think this was probably a first-time author until I read the author blurb at the end, and she specifically noted that. So I agree. It's extremely, I think, technically polished. And I think it definitely functions well as a piece of Gothic horror. It has the sort of plot and genre tropes all over it. I wasn't particularly surprised by its story. I won't spoil it here, but I wasn't particularly surprised by any of the elements of its story. It's sort of kind of beat for beat the kinds of things you expect once you know the broad strokes. But I thought it was well carried off. The thing that Laura was mentioning a moment ago about the parser, this is a limited parser game in that it has this very, very specific set of verbs. It does that really, really well, and it tutorializes how that works really, really well, because the very first few moments of the game, you awaken in this place. You're in a dusty room. You can't remember why you're there. You're finding that you have a strange feeling. You can't touch things, and there is a mirror there. And then when you look at the mirror, I'm just going to read. I took a couple of screenshots of this because it's from the first couple of moments of the game, and I think it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how these verbs in its strange parser are introduced. So there's an old-fashioned mirror, and you look into the mirror. You can see the curtains, the chest, the shadows reflected in the mirror, but nothing else. You move a little left and right. Why does moving feel so strange? And the mirror continues to reflect only the room around you. And suddenly you feel something. Fear. You have a distinct memory of fearing and avoiding mirrors. And this emotion crashes over you. Fear mirror. Fear mirror. The mirror explodes into shards of glass that fly towards you. You cringe and duck with that same boneless feeling, but the glass shards simply fly through you, hitting the floor behind you. Behind the mirror is a locket necklace, which, anyway, that's a verb that you've now learned, and it tutorializes it by, you sort of find a place or object that you have a profound emotional connection to. And the game does this fear mirror, or excite locket is the next important one that comes up almost immediately thereafter. And then you've got two verbs, and the verbs are always, verb, which is an emotion, and a single object. And so you've got this very simple parser. There's no insert red key into skeleton lock or whatever. It keeps the parser very simple. And it does some nice stuff as well in just terms of the sort of puzzle and world design, because when you're completing puzzles in this, a lot of them have to do with unlocking doors in this large house, and the doors are all very unique. So all the doors are color coded in a way that it sort of nods to this being part of a decor style, but it's also it helps a lot with puzzle design. You can remember, okay, I'm still trying to get into the orange door, that kind of thing. So it's, I think, very, very well designed. I would say this is like a really strong one of these, while I also was left feeling like sort of warm but not hot on this one, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of it is just because, like, while this really, really went in for its genre tropes, it's, the Gothic horror is not a particularly like exciting genre for me personally, and also it really was playing to the tropes to the degree that, like, I found a lot of it sort of unsurprising. There's an ending that I suppose is sort of meant to be like a reveal, but or at least I saw it coming from a mile away, and I didn't have much of a emotional response to it. So from a fiction standpoint, it is fair to good. From a puzzle design standpoint, it is pretty simple, but also pretty darn good. And technically, I think this is really, really well done. So I think this is a really great first work from this author, and I hope we see more from her. And I would definitely recommend checking this out if Gothic horror is your thing, or if you like ghosts, or if you just want to play something that is I'd say light puzzle that has a good spooky mood to it.
I do think that there's a huge benefit to what can sound like a word substitution puzzle. Like, sure, fear could be shatter, but I think it's much better when you're role playing as a ghost to say fear. You get this, it really contributes to the haunted feeling and the first person effect of it, because it would be much easier to be like, cool, you learned the word pull, or like, great, now you can unlock doors. That's never how the language works. It's much more immersive than that. And I think that I don't know why I've been reading more Gothic fiction this year than I normally do. I think because someone recommended Mexican Gothic, which is kind of one of the hot books right now. And I wanted to read something more classic before I read that. So I read 7 Gothic Tales. And I think one of the things is the more in an environment you can be, the better. And I think that that's what this game really settles into. It's the house is a character. It sounds like a cliche, but the house has to be a character, or it's not a Gothic piece of fiction. It's just one of the tropes. That is done exceptionally well, which honestly, like, it seems another given, like, it's an interactive fiction parser game. You should understand what the environment's like. But because it's a lot more immersive with the substitution of the words for emotions, because you're a ghost, you have a different way of experiencing the environment. I think that extra step really helped make this feel more special than just a haunted house exploration game.
And it's also just talking about the house, it's blessedly simple to navigate. One of my big pet peeves with parser games in general is when surely the author really, really understands the complex layout. There's something to be said for a little bit of a maze, right? But
I'm always happy when I don't have to draw a map, honestly.
Right. Me too. I did not have to draw a map for this. Never had a question whatsoever about where I was. Very simple layout to understand and keep in your head.
It depends, but especially for these shorter games in the comp, it is a barrier when you're kind of back-to-back sessioning these things to have one of them really necessitate pulling out a piece of paper and a pencil.
If it's the point, sure. If it's not the point, if the layout of the space is your 8th level of puzzle, I don't want to have to draw a map. If it's the first one or it's the main point, Yes, I'll happily draw one. So if you do have a spatial reasoning puzzle, I'm fine.
Yeah, and I think if there are times where they warn you in the description too, and if I'm warned up front, no problem. But yeah, if we get into it.
Yeah. And if you do have like a complex layout and you don't particularly care if somebody draws a map, please, puzzle or parser games that include the like go to room type of command, which this did not. This has, I think, a very nice hint and help system, but it does not have that, although I looked for it. But games that include the sort of like, go to room kind of verbs that will do the navigation for you, I always super appreciate that when it's there.
One of the things this kind of reminds me of, and I just kind of want to know if this is a part of it, I really like games that feature ghosts, and I just kind of want to know if you're actually haunting people or if you're more or less alone in this house. Like, are there people to scare, is I guess the question I have.
So scaring people is not your goal. There are people in the house, but for reasons, for most of the way through the game, you are avoiding people. And it doesn't have a whole lot of that as like a activity. You're mostly trying to explore the space and find objects that unlock your memories. There are some people, but they mostly only play into sort of the climactic finish. So there's not so much haunting, although I guess that is technically there is, but not so much.
After you get out of the very first room, you can hear footsteps and noise downstairs, but that's not something you want to investigate. You want to stay away from that for now. So it is an avoidance at the beginning.
So stick with Haunting starring Poltergeist.
I do also just want to drop a like thumbs up for, you see this a lot, I think, but this sort of is structured around a poem that's quoted at various points throughout the game, including at the very end. And it's Spring and Fall by Gerard Manley Hopkins. And this was not a poem I'd ever seen before, and I like it a lot. So I just thought I'd give a thumbs up to that aspect. Very nice. And I definitely see how it wove into the story of the game.
In this house, we love a radical Victorian.
So I think our next game was something you played, Shane.
Absolutely. I only really got the chance to play one game this week, and I'm really glad that I picked the one that I did. This is Fine Felines by Felicity Banks.
Oh, I wanted to play this one. Yeah. I wanted to make time for this one so much. It looks so neat.
It's terrific. It is terrific. It is. So the part of why I picked this one, I was still coming down off of the funicular simulator game that I played for our last episode on IFComp, and this game, at least in part, also purports to be a simulator. It's sort of a cat breeding business management sim, if you'd like. But in reality, it's not that at all. It is that, but more than that, I should say. It is a story about your character, who you get to choose aspects of the character, like their name and the gender and so on. But they're a 24-year-old who has inherited $10,000 and wants to start a successful cat breeding business. And the actual story I found to be very it was beautifully handled, and it was actually a very weighty story. The game it's a very kind of a bittersweet story about kind of loss. The main character has just spent several years assisting their mother, who has had a long protracted illness that resulted in her death, which is very recent. So it's the inheritance from the mother is the 10,000, and also the house in which she lives. And in addition to that, the main character has also, kind of towards the beginning of the story, receives a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which is a kind of debilitating chronic illness. So the choices that you make are, sometimes a decision that you might see in a business sim, like, do I buy the small, medium, or large pack of cat supplies, and you're watching and managing your money and things like this. And by the way, this does have that, it's written, I think, in choice script. So it has that screen that all of those seem to have, where you have the sliding bars that measure things like how much money you have, and in this, how empathetic you are and how much your neighbor hates you.
I love choice script games.
That aspect of it is very well done. And it is also, I think, extremely well written in terms of just the sensitivity that it brings to the material, and the just in general, I think the quality of the writing is really good. Felicity Banks is definitely not new to writing interactive fiction. I think she has had 5 or 6 years worth of games, at least on the IFDB website. But beyond that, she's also a novelist with also 5 or 6 actual novels in print. So, this is I think it's always a blessing when people bring that kind of level of experience and skill to IFComp and give us things like this. And then there's one more thing that I have to mention about this game, which is that it is beautifully illustrated with adorable cat pictures just throughout.
So many cat pics.
So many cat pictures.
Hell yeah.
So one of the main decisions that you will make as you get started in your cat raising business, in creating your cattery, is choosing which breed of cat you would like to breed. And there was like Bengals, which are the, those are the tough to raise, part wildcat style cats. And the one that I picked was a kind of cat I had never heard of. I do love cats. I do not have a cat. I would like to have a cat. I'm allergic to cats.
Me too.
This kind
Genetics.
of cat is called a ragdoll. Have you ever heard of a ragdoll cat?
Not until this game.
No, neither had I. They're apparently called ragdolls because when you pick them up, they go completely limp, which is
that's exactly what you want in a cat.
Yes, very much. That I want to have one of these cats. And they were just the sweetest, cutest cats. They had the little black faces or brown faces and floofy white bodies. I have almost never been so emotionally invested in the success of like one of these. A lot of times when you play sim games, you're in it to kind of fuck around. Like if I'm building my theme park in Roller Coaster Tycoon, I explicitly want to launch people over the park into the vacant lot nearby and see them die.
You monster.
I was incredibly emotionally invested in the success of this cattery.
I just Google image search ragdoll cat and look at these babies.
They're so fluffy. I played a little bit. I didn't finish this one, but I chose one ragdoll and one of the short hairs. And I chose the sweeter ragdoll, the dumb sweet ragdoll. And the short hair, you don't have a choice. You must choose Taylor Swift. And you are warned if you do not buy the nice cat carrier that she will pee in it. And she did pee in it. But I was like, you're not going to pay an extra $50 for the nice cat carrier. But it meant that I got a nice moment where I got to slowly introduce the two cats to each other. And then, like, I got an achievement for getting two cats to get along, which I don't think you do if you buy them together from one of the breeders. I was very invested in my two little kitties.
I would like to know that when your first litter came in, I have one of the most charming things is you can give all your kittens names. And so, of course, I wanted to name each of them individually. You can also pick from some pre-selected names, but I could not accept that. I don't know. Laura, did you name your kittens or did you use the names that were built in?
Oh, I had a huge conundrum because my cats were from different breeders, so they inherited names like Taylor Swift and Princess Anna. So I only named all of my cats after famous female royalty, because I just like rounded up Taylor Swift because
Famous royalty like Taylor Swift. Gotcha. Understood.
Well, I figured I needed to do like divas, so like the Taylor Swift kids were all like divas. It was like Aretha Franklin, and like I went that way, and then I did royalty for Princess Anna's kids. How about you?
So the cats, the mama cats did come with. Sorry, I learned some cat breeding terminology. The
queens,
the queens. Once they have bred, they are called queens. Kept their original names, but I named the first litter of kittens Hop Frog and Busker, and I named the second litter of kittens Tigger, Illrigger, Clarion, Old Dirty Bastard, and Felicity Banks.
Amazing.
All right, I'm going to come to you the next time I need to name a pet.
I need you to name all my pets, please.
I love naming pets. It really is. This was one of the primary pleasures of this game, was getting to name virtual cats.
I was supposed to name all of these under musical royalty or actual royalty, but I did name one of the cats Dame Maggie Smith because I thought it was funny.
I think it's also worth mentioning, I really liked the way that it integrated the romance options into the story. Each of the when you begin investigating the possibility of breeding these cats, you go around to meet local breeders, and they are the same people from whom you can buy your queen cats. Which the fact that they are queens implies that there could be a hive to me. Anyway, the queen cats, that you get them from these different, very colorful characters, and your player character can be male, female, or non-binary, and there are male and female romance options. And I thought that was really well done. I liked the romance options that were available. And I also personally really thought, I have a personal, I think everyone has personal stories about death and illness. And I thought that this was exceedingly well handled and very, very, it was a primary theme in the story, and it was done very, very well. So, I think this is just it was one of my biggest surprises for this competition, because I really was going in expecting to really care about how much I was spending on treats, and I sort of did, but it was other things that I cared about much, much more.
I also know that Felicity has made a spoiler-filled cheat sheet for people who want to know how to achieve certain goals or see paths not taken. Once I finish, I will probably look. There's no bad endings, but you can see how much variety she's built in, and I appreciate that, because especially when you're like us and you're trying to play as many games as possible, it's good to know how much more content you didn't see so you can play it again in the future, or encourage Raygan to make different choices so we can see how the Bengals turn up.
We'll see. I wish I'd made time to play this one. I actually played the first maybe 10 minutes or so of it, but I booted it up on my iPad, and then I forgot about it, and it refreshed the page, and I never went back to it. One of those sorts of situations. So this was definitely on my top list of things I wanted to spend some time on, and probably will before the actual close of the comp, but couldn't squeeze it in before this episode. So I'm glad somebody did.
Yeah, on a technical level, some of the tools that people use to make these things will keep your place when you refresh the page or navigate away, and others will not.
Twine has gotten a lot better about that. I don't know what this was using, but I've been having really good experiences with that with some of the more modern web-based tools.
Yeah, this one was choice script.
Yeah, you can save, but I don't know if it's automatic.
I always like when they when you play parser games via the click to play option on the they're using I forget what it's called, but it's the Electron based parser based tool, and I really appreciate that, you know, it lets you save, and it just saves a file. So if you're on a device like, you know, whatever you're on, it just gives you a file. I never really, no matter how good it is, I'm never really going to trust a game save that lives in browser cookies, no matter what. I just never trust it. I've had too many times where they disappear. So the idea that, like, you know, some of these systems at least will let you just like have it spit out a file that you can just put in your Dropbox or whatever. I so much prefer that. I wish even things like Twine would just like, let me let me spit out a file. Anyway, Laura, I think you have our next game on the list.
Yes, and it's another choice script game. So I played A Paradox Between Worlds by Chen, who's done a number of different games on IFDB. I believe this is one of her first comp entries. At least it's the first I've played. I didn't notice any of the others had submitted, so apologies if I mistook that. But before I get into this review, how familiar are you two with Tumblr? Tumblr stuff.
Minorly.
Okay.
Yeah, most of my Tumblr experience has been like, yeah, exactly. Links to Tumblr threads from Twitter is most of my experience with Tumblr.
Wonderful. I think this game will still work for either of you. But if you are a fandom person or have been through Tumblr drama of the past or fandom drama, you will recognize a lot of the in-jokes in here. I think otherwise you're just going to be like, it's another internet world I'm stumbling on. But I'm just going to say outright, that's that actual word. Say outright, if you are a Tumblr person, especially if you have been through Harry Potter trauma through Tumblr stuff, this game is going to hit home differently. So what's it actually about? So A Paradox Between Worlds is in a fictional fandom about the Nebulaverse. World of Mages, you actually can take personality quizzes to find your element and your role. So it's basically like, and they have full quizzes. The author has made, you know, if you don't know which element you associate with, go take this personality quiz, and you go take a quiz off site, come back. Very Pottermore-y, you know, very Sorting Hat. So you find out that you are, you know, an augur of metal or whatnot. And the idea is that you are moving back and forth between reading the canon, reading the book that the fandom is based on, actually reading pages of it. And there's no choices really in those. There are a few choices after a while, but you're kind of just reading the book and making choices about the character. And then you are at night, you can choose if you are past midnight sneaking in your room computer, if you have decided to be in the family living room on the only computer in the house waiting until everyone's gone to bed, or if you're hiding on your phone in your room, and you go on Tumblr because that's where you have this online life. And one of my favorite things in the avatar creation is you get to pick your URL, and you can choose if you want something that's related to the game, if you want something related to you, you can name it. I chose an alternate hobby, and holy cow, these are brilliant URLs for Tumblr creation. You can choose, you know, the first four are Nick Carraway's Defying Gravity, Eclair de Lune, which is what I chose.
That's a good one.
You know, there's Moonlight Sonata, Plains of Elysium, Destiel, John Locked, and the TARDIS. So some of these are fandom jokes, and some of them are just normal stuff. And if the words Destiel, John Locked, and the TARDIS don't mean anything to you, bless you, because you have so much of your brain free for other things that I do. I did not appreciate how many of the words in this I caught.
I'm a little less connected to this stuff than I thought, because I'm pretty sure I'm having a stroke or something. I don't understand a single word you're saying.
Okay. Well, I suggest if anyone is completely lost that they put the words Tumblr drama in quotes and search, because there are several wonderful posts outlining all of the dramas that have happened on Tumblr.
Those are always entertaining to me. I've never just straight up Googled it, but I'm on a couple of there's a subreddit that I like a lot. I think it's called hobby drama.
Yeah.
And it's basically a place where people go to like write lengthy explainers for drama within very specific subcultures, explaining the controversies to people outside those subcultures, mostly for sort of like rubberneck entertainment. And Tumblr is a frequent subject there, and for good reason. It's full of really, really heartfelt drama.
And again, none of this is required. It's a lot of this is what you need annotated has been annotated. For example, when you're doing the avatar creator and you get to pick what you're...
be about a Tumblr user stealing human bones.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah. That was a thing.
I would like to know more about that. Sorry, go
That's
ahead.
another, yeah. Bones, I did not see a reference to the human bones, but it was a big deal. That was a big time on Tumblr. Anyway, there are references to things on that giant list that show up in this game, but again, you don't have to know it. It's just fun. So what I mean by they annotate things is, you choose your blog's focus, what you normally reblog, because you're basically retweeting, you're reposting other people's posts during the game, and you choose up front what you like doing. And they explain, like, you can, do gin, fandom posts, shipping, you like romance stuff, meta, in-depth analysis, sympathy posts, validations, like reminders to hydrate, that kind of thing. So they do a good job of explaining the lingo, even if you don't participate. So I've explained two of the worlds: reading the book and like reading Tumblr posts from different blogs and reblogging or liking or, sending your friends messages about Tumblr discourse. The third thing you're doing is writing your own fan fiction. And you've come up with a fan fiction that is a portal fiction where you're going from one fan fiction trope to the next. So you're like, the people go through a portal and they're in the coffee shop universe, or they go to the portal and it's your characters in space, et cetera, et cetera. So it's layers and layers and layers of fandom stuff. It's all fun and games until basically J.K. Rowling enters the picture. And
dun dun dun.
And makes transphobic comments. So the author in the game posts, enters the discourse, and suddenly the fandom takes over. So this affects your friends, this affects the posts, this affects the what clearly veiled DashCon. I don't know if I have time to explain DashCon, but I'll explain the game first. And if you want a DashCon primer, I will explain it.
There's some wonderful YouTube videos full of schadenfreude about DashCon.
Yeah, DashCon was TumblrCon, and they try to run a NebulaCon, and they say things like, NebulaCon's going to have a ball pit, and it's all references to this other fandom drama. Anyway.
What I'm realizing is that everything that was happening on Tumblr has just been copy-pasted to TikTok now.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no index, and it's less literary folks.
You have to be able to dance. It's like if Tumblr required you to be able to do voices and dance.
Yeah. There's virtually zero dancing on my TikTok For You page.
Bless you, Shane.
Well curated. Well done, Shane.
No, it's the algorithm.
This is not a hugely long game, but it seems enormously complex. There's multiple worlds. There's multiple ways of interacting in the world, but it feels much more like being online the game, because you are moving between, perusing someone's work, looking at social media posts, trying to create your own work. And the stats are all game-related stuff. Like, there's a system in the game where it's like color-coded for lenses, and so all the stats are in the color-coded. It feels like fandom dial turned way up, but for a fictional universe, so you don't have to really know what's going on. And you can choose how good of a person you are. You can choose if your friend is reaching out, or if your friend is posting, like, do you reblog transphobic content? Do you try to ban talk? Do you try to yell back at people? Do you stay silent? There's all these decisions, and it's all hammered down to, do you like, reblog, message somebody? It's all told through social media. And I don't think anyone's done that this complicated in a game before. Anyway, I clearly loved it. I think this is fine if you're not extremely online as well. But I would love someone else to tell me if that's the case, because I was seeing, Harry Potter drama in here and weird Tumblr flashback drama. But you also do you keep writing your fanfic once stuff goes down? Do you keep posting once stuff goes down? Like, it's up on you. Like, do you step back from the fandom? Do you keep engaging? It actually makes a good case for both being the right choice, which is not always the case in games like this that have a strong opinion on what is right and what is wrong.
That sounds really interesting. And I've noticed a bit of an uptick in the last couple of years in games that are using interactive fiction as, I think, the ideal format for sort of telling the stories of of internet culture. I'm thinking back specifically about last year's entry from Naomi Norbez. Oh, what was that called? It was I haven't played their game from this year yet, or they actually have two that are like a linked pair, and I'm looking forward to trying them, and didn't get a chance to give them a shot in time for this year. But last year they had one that sort of told a story of it told a story basically through the lens of a relationship that came about on a sort of approximation of Neopets. And had a lot of the sort of Neopets, stuff. And there's other games in the comp even this year. So I really think that interactive fiction is kind of the ideal format for telling online stories. And as our generation is getting to the age where it's, our generation that came of age online is getting to the age where that's something that we feel a drive to do. I mean, we're seeing more of that, and I hope we do see even more, because I think, those are stories that need to be told. And how can you tell them to someone without giving them sort of an approximation of the internet,
And if anyone was curious how my blog turned out, if you were following me, 29% meta and 17% shit posting. There's a lot of other stuff.
That seems low.
It was a very low amount. I think I felt bad shit posting while people were having feelings, but at the beginning of the game, before things turned sour, I was just retweeting shit posts.
Man,
reblogging shit posts rather. So if I did it again, I feel like it would just be meta and shit posting, and we'll see how the game ends up. But
that's super interesting. That's really, really, really neat that it gives you so much of the Tumblr experience in this in this piece. So
absolutely.
And potentially a good transition here is that the next game on our list, the last one that I played for this year's comp, ready for time of recording, was another game that sort of takes place in and around the early internet. And that is SpamZapper 3.1. And this one was easily the biggest surprise I've had in the comp this year. And while it's hard for me to really do like a rank, this is maybe my favorite thing I've played so far in the comp this year. I really, really, really liked SpamZapper 3.1. I want to recommend it to everybody. You have some caveats about that. It's not perfect, and I think it could use a little bit of an edit. But there are this was such a surprise, and so I'm going to have to do my best not to spoil just absolutely everything about it. But I want to tell you about SpamZapper 3.1 because I really, really enjoyed this one. SpamZapper 3.1, first off, is a Twine piece. This is by developer Leon Arnott. I looked at their Twitter and IFDB, and I don't think this is their first interactive fiction work, but I'm pretty sure this is their first time in the comp. And according to their page, I was not familiar with them before, but they're a developer and also a contributing developer of Twine itself. So, this seems to be somebody who really knows their way around Twine. And this was maybe the most, meatiest, lengthiest, and most involving Twine story I've read in a long time. So there's a really big intertwined story. I think altogether it probably took me 4 hours or maybe even longer to get through, which is unusual for games in the comp. But I was quite glad that I did. On the face of it, it looks like a joke, right? Like scrolling through the comp page, this sounds like it's a setup for a purely comedic, I would kind of expect kind of light experience. And also it says it's a 2000s workplace dramedy, an hour and a half wrong. This took me longer than that. And choice-based, true. The summary here, the description on the comp page, all caps, by the way. Distinguish truth and scams in over 130 unique emails. Protect the inbox from urban legends. Exchange witty repartee with your plug-in coworkers. Cross swords with a deadly email worm. Learn way too much about your users' friends. And then it has quite a lot of content warnings. Parental abuse, fundamentalist Christianity, anti-technology conspiracies, social anxiety, depression, mockery of suicidal ideation, mockery of Christianity, online identity theft, non-consensual mind control, and toxic parasocial relationships, all in this 2000s workplace dramedy about a spam zapping plugin for an email client.
The only warning that matters there for me is 2000s workplace dramedy. I can't watch The Office again.
This game begins with you are SpamZapper, right? You are this plugin in an email client installed on a year 2000 PC, and it is your job as the SpamZapper plugin to evaluate emails as they hit the inbox. To decide whether they're spam or not, you have a sort of an inbox interface. You can choose an email. You can read it. You read at the bottom of the email a little bit of text where SpamZapper is responding to what he has read, and you can choose to approve the email or to zap it. That alternates with more narrative sequences in the game that are more about SpamZapper exploring his world. And the thing that really surprised me the most about this, that I can talk about without spoiling anything at all, is that this game takes its conceit that this piece of software, one of a whole bunch of pieces of software on this very old PC in around the year 2000, has a thinking mind and is, in a sense, a person. It takes that conceit, which seems like it's a pure comedic thing, right? It seems like it's just going to be sort of playing the Wreck-It Ralph or Toy Story card, right? And no, it takes it very seriously. The game is funny throughout, but it also is not afraid to try to treat its ideas as real science fiction conceits and try to tell a story within that world that makes at least an effort to make sense and have real characters in it. So SpamZapper has a really good arc in this story. SpamZapper, begins this story as a bit of a mess. They are they're depressed. They hate reading emails. The only light in their life is when they receive emails that are coming from the user's friends, and they can sort of vicariously live through those messages. They're in constant fear that if they make the wrong call, the user is going to delete them and they will cease to exist. Just constant anxiety, fear, alternating with disgust and sort of haughty distaste for the junk mail that they're constantly forced to muck through, right? This character is really vivid. Just constantly feel and then into this picture comes a second character. There's actually a lot of characters in this, but the other sort of key character that intrudes on SpamZapper's world, the user installs a second plugin or a new plugin called New Email Chimes. And New Email Chimes, their job is to make various sounds when a new email arrives. Things like "you've got mail" or a quacking sound. And this incredibly jolly coworker wants to make friends with SpamZapper, and SpamZapper is just too much of a complete mess to have interpersonal relationships with any other piece of software. That's the sort of inciting incident. But this goes places. There are so many little plot threads that get threaded together. The user has 4 or 5 fairly close friends that they're carrying on email conversations with, each of whom you get a real sense of their personality as the user discusses things like animation, which is a huge hobby for the user, and other personal stuff. Just having these like very heartfelt and personal and also just sort of hobby related discussions with their friends, and the content of those emails and also the content of the spam emails plays into the sort of interpersonal drama that's happening inside the computer between SpamZapper and their coworkers. You're constantly finding, and then occasionally you get like weird, like hypercube style spam emails that are just like conspiracy theory sounding crap about the nature of consciousness. But wouldn't you know, it actually kind of explains why you're a thinking computer program. Like there's this really interesting like back and forth between both the actual good and also crappy spam emails that you're having to sort through, alternating with the story of SpamZapper interacting with their colleagues. And then the overarching plot has it's willing to go there in terms of like, if you're going to take this idea seriously, that this is a world in which computer programs have their own interiority and their own lives. Well, what is the ultimate extension of that? You've got to have some interaction between software and people, right? And it's not afraid to go there. What happens when that starts happening? That doesn't happen on your computer. It happens to one of the friends, and so that gets brought in, and there's this impending tragedy that's happening out there in the real world that the SpamZapper cares deeply about and wants to help prevent. And so there's this fairly lengthy struggle for them to try and figure out how they, as a bunch of very limited computer programs running on a single 2000 era computer in an email program, can have any effect on the real world to essentially try to save a life, right? How can they? And the way they get to that was actually pretty circuitous and full of ups and downs, and a little bit thrilling. My biggest complaint about this is that I think it is too long. Like I said, like I didn't time myself. I read this over the course of several sessions, just leaving a browser tab open the whole time. An hour and a half is, I think, a vast underestimate. And I would suspect I spent almost 4 hours making my way through this thing. And I think it could have lost one of those hours. There are some mid-game stuff that feels like set up for an ending that never happened. Like reading this game includes some like author's materials that tells about some of the process. And I think there's some pretty clear, like it feels a little overstuffed in the middle. I think the game would have been better served by being an hour or so shorter and cutting some of the material that felt like it didn't belong, but sort of felt like it was building to something that didn't end up really being part of the story. So there's definitely some issues here. I would say power through that stuff because it actually has a really powerful ending. I was kind of moved, which is really weird to say about a game where you play as a spam zapping piece of software. So I cannot recommend this highly enough. It's weird. It's kind of uneven. It's too long. It's got some weird junk in it. Some of its sci-fi conceit, it's like it's self-consciously like pretty silly, right? Like there's no good sci-fi conceit for like why does a computer program have a soul or whatever, but it has an explanation that it throws enough mumbo jumbo on to like slide it past. And in a way, it reminded me. I was talking to Shane about this a little while ago, and we were. Shane and I are both big fans of a sci-fi author called Greg Egan, who writes a lot of stuff about the sort of intersection between math, computers, and consciousness. And this felt like in about the second act, it slid from being a jokey workplace comedy into being a Greg Egan story. And I was like, whoa, I can't believe this pulled that weird twist like halfway through. And actually, it wasn't even halfway through. This thing went on for a while. But like, I was blown away by that. So yeah, this is a really accomplished piece. It's like a really, really well done from a technical standpoint, being a twine piece. Like it's got all the stuff that you look for in like a lengthy twine piece, and it's got like nice use of text. It saves and doesn't lose your save and lose your place. And it has, most importantly, I think, a story that really carried me through. It's sort of novella length, has real characters, many real characters and arcs, and you do not expect that going into a jokey thing about a spam bot. So I can't believe how much I liked this thing.
Many real characters is actually a compliment that I would typically not apply to Greg Egan's work. So
that's true.
I was about to say, it's so funny that you compared to Greg Egan, because the first half, the monitoring someone's emails workplace drama, is a Rainbow Rowell book called Attachments. And it was funny because Fangirl was a huge inspiration for the game I just reviewed, Paradox. So I was like, is this Rainbow Rowell hour? And then you started talking about sentience. I was like, it's not. Attachments is a book about a real person monitoring someone's work emails, and they kind of think it's a robot, but he ends up falling in love with someone who he should be forwarding her emails to HR, but he ends up falling in love with her instead.
I should give that a shot because I do love Rainbow
It's
Rowell.
cute.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Shane, you're right. Thomas Was Alone, also a bit of vibes of that. Although this has it has a sort of a different tone than that. But I can't recommend this highly enough. I really liked it a lot. Which is very funny to say, in that I read the author's notes that you unlock at the end of the game, and one of the things they said was very self-deprecating, like, "I'm so glad to be free of this. It's strange to have written something that I'm approximating their quote, but they basically said like." It's strange when you get to the end of writing something and realize you've created something that you wouldn't have enjoyed yourself. I would never read this. I'm like, are you kidding? This was great. But hey, whatever.
I think every game we covered today has an extensive walkthrough reference guide notes at the end.
This is very minimally. There's no branching in this as far as I can tell, so there's no need for a walkthrough. The interactivity mostly comes through the emails.
Okay.
Being able to, so there's like, in the narrative sequences, there's things to click on where you can decide what you say in certain circumstances. But that's not really super important. The only like the major interactions happen through the email interface where you are deciding whether to approve or reject certain emails. Even that, I don't think they have an effect on the plot. They have, dialogue effects, but I don't think they like steer the story. It's mostly a novella with an interactive email client at its heart.
Ah, fair. I just assumed you said you unlocked author's note at the end. It was kind of extra, but never mind. It's not a real trend.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, it's a thing where if you put the author's name into the there's a point at the beginning where you name the user, the main, and I just put in my name, of course, because it's my computer in the 90s. If you put in Leon Arnott's name, it unlocks a developer room where you can go and read his notes about the creation of the game. And they were very interesting. So if you're curious.
Very fun.
But they're spoilery, so don't read them unless you finish the game. So that's all I have to say about that game. Do we have anything else to add about the comp in general before we move on to what's making us happy?
I would just say you only have to play 5 to rate. So hopefully we've steered you to something, but I also strongly encourage you to just look for keywords you like. And the filters, I think we've talked about them every episode, but the new filters are a gift from the heavens. Truly, we love nothing more than a content filter to help us find games to review when, for example, you have an hour before you record and you want to add something else. Perfect.
Yeah, this is the comp page continues to get better and better every year. Little tweaks, but bit by bit. But many thanks to the team that runs the interactive fiction competition. They continue to make our jobs easier every year and make the comp a more enjoyable thing every single year. So if you want to participate in this year's comp, quick recap: go to ifcomp.org. and you'll find all of the games there. You can download or play them. Most of them will just play right in your browser if you want. Don't forget to vote. You can go to ifcomp.org/ballot, I believe, or where is the page for voting? Well, you'll find a link to the actual voting /ballot/vote is the page that actually lets you enter your votes. Don't forget to do that. And make sure as you're adding your votes, you can also add feedback to the authors themselves if you want. That's optional entirely, but if you would like, you can add feedback to go along with your vote, and the authors will see it. Try to be nice. As Laura said, you have to have at least 5 entries on your ballot for your ballot to count, and you have to have it in by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on November 15th. So that's coming right up. If you're listening to this on our regular feed, it'll be coming right down the pike. So, in fact, our episode here will be going out
on the
15th. Oh boy! So
do it today.
This is a Monday episode. So do it today if you're hearing my voice, and if you haven't, hurry up. So yeah, that's happening very soon. And also, thanks very much to all of the authors in this year's comp. If we didn't get to your game, apologies. It does not mean that we did not think your game was good or interesting. I am looking forward to checking all of them out as much as I can. So thank you so much for authors whose works we covered, whose works we have not yet had an opportunity to cover. Thank you very much. Let's see. Shane, what's making you happy this week?
I have been binging some movies, and so I will take this as sort of an opportunity to just dump some movie recs on you all.
Sure.
The first one is a movie called The Night House, and this one is a horror movie that is it's David Bruckner. I don't think I've seen any of his other movies. Basically, this one is a unusual twist on some kind of classic horror tropes. This has it's basically about a widow who is, she's recently lost her husband, who is an architect, and she is learning all of these disturbing things about him. And it really was very surprising to me. I really enjoyed this movie. This one's a hard one I'm going to move on to my next rec, because this is a easy to spoil movie. But it is a good one if you enjoy supernatural horror or anything in that, or psychological horror, I guess. Also recently, in the same kind of horror vein, this is me kind of coming out of spooky season. This is, I think, our first November episode. I finally caught the 2021 Candyman adaptation. I don't know if anybody else here has seen that one yet.
Mm-hmm.
This is my biggest.
It was all right.
I personally really enjoyed it. So I really liked the original Candyman movies, but this one very wisely is pretty much just a follow-up to the original Candyman, which has held a ton of meaning kind of through the years in the way that it adapted the story of kind of poverty in the projects in Chicago, and it's a fantastic movie even today. This, of course, was directed by Nia DaCosta, but it was produced by Jordan Peele, of course, who directed Us and what was the other one? Anyway, he's tremendous, and what I thought this one did extremely well. I mean, obviously, it's maybe not a perfect movie, but it is definitely, it's a solid 8 or 9 out of 10 for me in terms of these kinds of horror movies. It is taking this movie that I loved and was really doing social commentary at the time it came out in the 90s, and it is recontextualizing that in a modern context. It's really, really good. Incredible acting in it from several great people, but in particular, I really like this guy, Coleman Domingo, who is also in Zola. He's awesome. And the only knock on this one I would have is that it kind of one of the big selling points for Candyman, and really also Candyman 2 for me, is the fantastic soundtrack by Philip Glass, the kind of famous kind of modern classical composer who just created this incredible, totally unique horror score. The man is an absolute genius. This one does not live up to that, but it's not like they could have easily dragged Philip Glass onto this project. So it really, I was about to say dragged him out of the grave, but I'm not entirely sure if he's dead. Sorry,
I don't
Philip.
know either.
I don't think he is. I'm going to check that now. No, I don't think he's dead. I was about to. I'm pretty sure he's at least retired. What is Philip Glass doing today? philipglass.com.
He's busy being 84.
Yes, he is. His Symphony No. 13 will premiere at the National Arts Center of Ottawa this year. So he is alive. Sorry, Philip. And, since I'm just doing movie recommendation dumps, I'll also say check out The Green Knight. Raygan and I did watch this one together. So, Raygan, what did you think of The Green Knight? I absolutely loved it.
I loved it too. It had been a very long time since I had revisited that story, and it felt so modern and interesting that I thought, surely this is highly embellished in terms of its content over the original Arthurian, poem, right? Nope, it's very beat for beat the poem. It's just really, really, really well told visually, and I think it's great. I can't recommend it enough. Great movie, loved it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I knew I would like that one because when it comes to like Arthurian legends and high fantasy in general, that is my catnip. I was on board from the moment I heard they were adapting it, but the tone of it was really unique. It had this sort of slow but beautiful tone that just really was full of these surprising scenes that were really given the space to breathe and to land. And that was, and also incredible soundtrack, great performances, really, really good one. So, I have more movies that I could include, but I think 3 is probably the right number to dump in my recommendation dump here. So I'll pass it on to whoever else has had something making them happy.
Well, I'll just say that the thing
also
that's
check out
making me
Crypto
happy...
Zoo. I couldn't stop myself. Check out Crypto Zoo.
Okay, thanks, Shane. That's actually timely because for me, the thing that's been making me happy is that I am in the process of I don't have much to show for it yet, but I'm in the process of finally setting up a home theater setup that is like more than just like a TV in my open plan living room. We moved a couple of years ago into one of these big suburby houses, and one of the things that it has is a media room, which we used promptly as a closet. But the media room, we're finally in the process. That's our Christmas gift to ourselves. We're finally in the process of getting a big damn TV and a really big, cushy, comfy, recliny couch and all of the stuff, surround sound, all of that stuff. And this will be my first time having like a dedicated room like that ever. I know it's like, it's some suburby crap to have like a theater room in your house or whatever. And but whatever. I'm very excited. I'm excited to have a space that's designed specifically for watching movies on a really enormous screen and with surround sound, especially considering like, I don't go to movie theaters anymore. I have 2 children and we've been living in a pandemic. I actually got my opportunity to go to a movie theater for the first time in 3 years recently. We went and saw Dune while my in-laws were watching the kids, or rather they were asleep at their house. And being able to go out to a movie and immerse myself in a movie was, I could say after 3 years, it was a revelation. So I'm hoping for more of a little bit of that at home and I'm very, very excited. So that's what's
you
making
saw
me happy this
Dune
week,
without
even
me,
though it's
you
incomplete.
absolute shit.
Yep, sorry, bud.
We were
Yeah, that
holding
was
out to
actually
see
maybe-
it in real IMAX, and then Eternals came in this weekend and cleared it, and now we're just mourning that we can't see it on the real.
It would have been a good one, but like, we saw it in a regular theater. But that, I guess that is the secondary making me happy is that the fact that Dune, a thing that I have loved since I was a teenager, has been the thing everyone has been talking about on Twitter for weeks now. I love that. I love to talk about Dune.
I love this.
Please
for you.
talk to me about Dune. It's been great. So the movie, I really enjoyed it. It's not a perfect adaptation, and there's always going to be flaws in these things, but it's, I think, the best Dune adaptation that we can expect. And I'm very much looking forward to the second part. And I immediately went and I did the audiobook of Dune, probably if I had to guess, maybe 7th time through that novel in my lifetime, and enjoyed it just as much as I always have. So thumbs up to Dune. Making me happy. Laura, what's making you happy this week?
So before I go into book recs, I wanted to say that I went to a wedding in London, and one of the shows I saw was Showstoppers, the improvised musical, which apparently has been a thing in the UK for 11 years, but it is not something you can replicate because it's like 4 people who do it and no one else can do it because it's so hard to improvise a musical.
That is impossible.
No, I saw it. It's real.
I don't believe you. Go
So
on.
what happens is the audience suggests 3 different things that could be about. I think someone was like a kebab shop, a school inspections, and I don't know, stationery. No one liked the other one. And then you vote on the group. Everyone picks who picks school inspections, and then people randomly get called on, and each can name a musical. And so we had Mamma Mia, West Side Story, Book of Mormon, and Come From Away. And then someone names it, and they chose the name Only Schools and Courses, because Only Pools and Courses is a UK show. So like that was a UK joke, and everyone loved it. And then they just start the show. There's a band on stage. There's a bunch of actors. They're all wearing kind of like unit-set clothing. And at some point, the band will start playing a song, and people will sing it, and like then other people start dancing, and they all do choreography together, and they do duets. And sometimes a scene is going on, and the actors are talking about something, and the band will start playing, and the moderator guy will stop and be like, and now they're going to sing a song in the style of West Side Story. And then suddenly it's the Tonight duet, and they have to improvise in like the story point about like, this ended up weirdly having this like oddly like a guy was dating his father's mistress. It was very weird. The plot got out of control. But I'm still laughing at some of the jokes, and that was a month ago. It is one of the most astonishing magical things I've ever seen.
That's incredible.
It tours the UK all the time. It's just one of those things that I am flabbergasted it existed, and it was one of the best returns to live theater I could have planned. If you don't live in the UK and there's not a live stream happening where they take online suggestions, I suggest that you do something very different and read another one in my series of Laura tries to read non-Western inspired fantasy books. This one is the Poppy War trilogy, which is Chinese shamanism. And it's rad, and it's incredibly violent because it's not actually YA. It's full-grown adults, but everybody's 18, so they make bad decisions. And it's not adult because it's sexy. It's adult because there's, like, cadavers everywhere. It is one of the most strategic, military-focused books I've read in a long time. The author said she wrote the books of what if Mao Zedong was a 16-year-old girl and also had fire powers.
What if?
What if? You got to read the book. I'm gobbling these books up in an unhealthy pace. I'm about to hit the 3rd in the trilogy.
Awesome. you are a reliable source of book recs, so I'm adding this to my Goodreads right now. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, it's fantastic
my
to
Kindle.
have an unlikable protagonist that you're just like, oh, there are so many bad decisions being made, but I'm here on your terrible quest for vengeance.
Well, Laura, thank you for the book rec. And Shane, thank you for the movie recs. And listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. You can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, which is where you'll find all of our stuff. You'll find our contact form, great way to drop us a line and let us know what you're playing. We're rolling into GOTY season, so this is a really good time if you've got the last minute thing like, I can't believe they haven't covered X yet. These are your last chance, man. Let us know. Important time for that sort of thing. And
I would like to interject that as we roll into Game of the Year season, I have found my Game of the Year most likely, and it is Inscription, and we are covering it. And I would say I don't always get to tell people ahead of time when we're about to cover something that I really like. So, hey, check it out. Inscription with a Y.
Yeah, we're definitely, I think our next two games are Unpacking, which is getting a lot of good press right now, and I'm really enjoying, I'm almost done with, and Inscription, which I'm also almost done with, and I almost agree with Shane. I haven't gotten far enough to call it a GOTY yet, but it's also very, very good. So a couple of really interesting games coming up if you want to check those out with us. You can find our contact form on the web. You can find a link to our Patreon. The Short Game is patron supported, and all of our patrons at even $1 a month get access to our Discord. That's where we chat about the games that we're playing. If you want to talk to us about IFComp or about the Game of the Year season, how we're making our choices, or if you want to just come in and chat, it's a nice casual place to do that. So we'd be very overjoyed to have you. Please join us there. And of course, if you join at the $5 level, I will send you stickers with our beautiful logo on it. And you can put them on your water bottles or laptops or switches or whatever and feel very cool. And everyone will ask you, what is the Short Game? And you can tell them all about it, and we'll appreciate that too. So do that. Let's see. You can find us on Twitter at _shortgame, and you can find me on Twitter at Raygan K. That's RAYGANK. And Shane, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at 8bitshane.
And Laura, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Laura J. Nash.
And listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.